So we discuss about photo detector noise, double heterogeneity structure, diodes, photodiodes, response time, and the comparison of photodetectors. So here, first we discuss about photodetector noise. So in an optical fiber communication system, photodiode is generally required to detect very weak optical signals. So we saw that earlier during the discussion of photodiode, pin photodiode device and avalanche photodiode device. So the device has to detect a very weak optical signals. So the signals which are emitted out of the optical fiber or the output of the optical fiber will be normally weak and distorted. So that is a very important requirement of a photodetector. And detection of the weakest possible optical signals requires that the photodetector and its following amplification circuit be optimized so that a given signal to noise ratio to be maintained. So whenever I consider a weak signal and a distorted signal, it has to be amplified because amplification is required for a weaker signal, and the system is optimized so that the given signal to noise ratio has to be maintained. So the power signal to noise ratio at the output of an optical receiver is given by SNR, that is equal to signal power from the photocurrent by photodetector noise power plus the amplifier noise power. So these are the two noise sources what we come across. One is the photodetector noise, the other is the amplifier noise power. So in order to maintain a proper signal to noise ratio, I should see that the signal power should be maximum and this noise should be minimum. This should be very less. So to achieve high SNR, for some of the following conditions are to be met by the photodetector. So photodetector must have a high quantum efficiency to generate a large signal power. So that is the first requirement or first condition to achieve a very high value of signal to noise ratio or SNR. So photodetector should have a high quantum efficiency. Then photodetector and amplifier noise should be kept as low as possible. So we know that the photo detection process introduces photodetector noise during the conversion process, and even the amplification process is done by the amplifier, along with which the amplifier noise gets introduced into the signal. So we see the simple model of a photodetector receiver. So this is a model of a photodetector receiver where the light is going to fall on this particular photodiode, and the intensity of light is responsible for this output current which is produced. Before that, the signal has to be amplified, and this is a device which is going to convert the optical signal into electric current, and this electric current will have the photodetector noise, and this noise should be kept very low, and again the signal has to be amplified by the amplifier. So the signal gets amplified by the amplifier, but along with that the amplifier will introduce amplifier noise into the signal. So that noise has to be again kept very low. So that is done by properly selecting the resistors in the amplifier design in the photodiode circuit, and the capacitances are also responsible for this particular noise which gets generated or produced into this system. So we see that we have resistance Rs, we have resistance RL, we have the capacitances, for the amplifier and the photodetectors. So that is the equivalent circuit what we can have for this particular detection process and amplification process. So this is this particular. Now we just look into the noise sources. So principal sources which are associated with these photodetectors that have no internal gains. So they are quantum noise. So that is the first type of noise which is existing, and dark current noise which is generated in the bulk material of the photodiode, and surface leakage noise. So that is surface leakage current noise. So that is these are the three different noises which are produced by the photodiode due to various reasons. So first we look into the quantum noise. Quantum noise is also termed as a short noise. So this noise arises from the statistical nature of production and collection of photoelectrons when an optical signal is incident on a photodetector. So due to the statistical nature of photoelectrons, the quantum noise or short noise arises. The short noise current has a mean square value in the receiver, which is depending on bandwidth, which is proportional to the average value of the photocurrent IP. So the short noise is dependent on the bandwidth and dependent on the photocurrent. Then Fm is the noise figure here, and M is the multiplication factor or the gain of the photodetector. Then the photodiode dark current is the current that continues to flow through the bias circuit of a device, even though when there is no light which is incident on the photodiode. So that we call it as dark current. Even with the absence of voltage or the light on the photodiode, there is a presence of current. So that shouldn't happen. So that is a dark current which is present in the photodiode. So this is a combination of bulk and surface current. So we take it as bulk and surface currents. So the bulk current is represented by IDB, which arises from the electrons or holes or electrons and holes that are thermally generated in the p-n junction of the photodiode. So bulk current is due to the electrons, holes or electron hole pairs, etc., which is generated at the p-n junction of the photodiode. But in AP diode, these liberated carriers are also accelerated by the high electric field which are present in the p-n junction, and they are multiplied by the avalanche gain mechanism. So that is multiplication which happens in the AP diode. So the mean square value of this current is given by IDB square is equal to 2Q into ID into M into Fm, M square into Fm into B. So again this depends on bandwidth, depends on the value of Fm, the noise figure, depends on the gain or multiplication factor, depends on the current. And ID is the primary detector, bulk dark current or unmultiplied current. So the surface dark current or surface leakage current is due to the surface defect. So this is, we have to know, the surface dark current or surface leakage current is due to the surface defect, cleanliness problem, bias voltage and surface area, and can be reduced through a guard ring structure which shunts surface leakage current away from the load resistor. So we have to make a proper arrangement of the resistor so that we can avoid these surface defects, bias voltages and cleanliness problem. So due to which there is a surface dark current or surface leakage current. So that can be reduced. But if I measure it, the mean square value of a surface dark current is given by IDS square is equal to 2Q into IL into B, where IL is the surface leakage current. So we have three different currents used now, IP, ID and IL. So these three currents are due to these three changes or variations or problems. So the photodetector noise current is given by IN square. So that is equal to the sum of short noise, sum of dark current, sum of surface current. Okay, so together we can see what is IN square. Similarly, IT is a thermal current, thermal noise current, what we get. So if I go with signal to noise ratio, I can see that IP square into M square by the addition of noises. So these are noises, this is the signal, this is the signal, this is a noise. So this is a signal to noise ratio what I can have for a photodetector. Then next is about double heterostructure photodiodes. So this double heterostructure photodiode is just a similar performance of a photodiode, similar structure of a photodiode to increase the performance. Okay, so to increase the performance of a pin photodiode, we make a structural design changes that are employed in the pin photodiode. So in this design, the central intrinsic layer of the depletion region is sandwiched between two different P-type material and N-type semiconductor layers. So that is a difference what we find. There is a depletion region which gets sandwiched between P-type and N-type semiconductor layers. So to normally increase the performance. So that is a very important aspect here. So the band gap of these layers is chosen such that only the intrinsic region should absorb light. So consider a pin photodiode structure of 12501650 nanometer application. So this is the wavelength used. Then uses insulated gallium arsenide for the intrinsic layer and insulated phosphorus for adjacent lattice P and N layers. So these are the materials which are used here. So it is known that the band gap is 1.35 electron volt for an insulated phosphorus, so that it is transparent to light for a wavelength which is greater than 920 nanometer. So this is the important aspect of the band gap. And when X is equal to 0.47, the band gap of intrinsic region is 0.73 electron volt, which gives a cutoff wavelength of about 1900 nanometer in that material. So this is the arrangement which is done to improve the performance of this particular pin photodiode. So we can see that top metal contact ring. So this is a structure which is included, and the photon, this is the light which gets which is incident onto this material, and this is the depletion region. This is P and N plus material. So there is a bottom metallic contact on which we see that between P and N plus layer we have a depletion region which is sandwiched. So which has to improve the performance of this material or the device. So if I come into look into the operation, the light enters the device from the top N layer. So we can see that the light is going to enter like this. The common configuration is to have a top metallic contact in the form of a ring. So we see that there is a metallic contact in the form of a ring, which can enable light to which can easily enter through this particular ring. The operation is similar to the photodiode operation, which is a fin photodiode. Then detector response time. So here we come across three factors which depends on which the response time depends. The response time of a photodiode depends on the following three factors. One is transit time of the photocarriers in the depletion region, then diffusion time of the photocarriers which are generated outside the depletion region, and the RC time constant of the photodiode and its required or associated circuits. So the photodiode parameters which are responsible for these factors are: one is absorption coefficient, the width of the depletion region as we already saw earlier, the photodiode junction capacitance and package capacitance. these are the two factors what we consider here: the amplifier capacitance, the detector load resistance, the amplifier input resistance, and the photodiode series resistance. So these are the resistances and capacitances based on which the photodiode parameters are going to be affected. So transit time of photocarriers in the depletion region. So the response time of the photodiode is limited by the time it takes the photo generated carrier to travel across the depletion region. So there is a time taken by the charge or the carriers to move in the depletion region. So that is called as transit time. So the transit time depends on the velocity or speed. By what speed the charges are going to move from one particular point to another point in a depletion region. So that depends on the drift velocity and the depletion region width or layer width. So TD is equal to W by VD. So transit time is the ratio of the depletion region or layer width to the drift velocity. So with what speed the charges are going to be moving to cover this particular distance or width of a depletion region, the time is going to be changed. So electric field in the depletion region should be always larger so that the carriers have reached their scattering limited velocity. So this is very important. For silicon, the maximum velocities for electrons and holes are given by these two: 8.4 into 10 power 6 centimeters per second and 4.4 into 10 power 6 centimeters per second. Then when an electric field strength is on the order of 2 into 10 power 4 volt per centimeter, then if I consider a high speed silicon photodiode, it has got a 10 micrometer depletion layer width and response time is about 0.1 nanoseconds. So it is having a very good response time. And this is how we measure the rise time and fall time of any device. The same thing is used here. Photodiode voltage response depends on the photodiode, how it is going to give the response with the change in the time. So it shows the 10 to 90% rise time and 10 to 90% fall time. So this is a typical response of a photodiode, that if it is not fully depleted, the percentage of optical power, so till 50% response from the fast carrier and response from the slow carrier. The fast carrier is with the 50% power output, and from the slower carrier the power output reaches maximum. So diffusion time. In a high field region, the diffusion process is slow compared with the drift of the carriers. For a high field photodiode, the photocarrier should be generated in the depletion region or close to it, because of which the diffusion time is lesser than the carrier drift time. The effect of this long diffusion time is responsible for the photodetector or photodiode response time. So it should not take long diffusion time. So response time is described by the rise time and fall time of the detector output when it is illuminated by a optical input. So tau R is 10 to 90% points on the leading edge, tau F 90 to 10% points on the falling edge. For fully depleted photodiodes, rising time and falling time are equal. But for low bias levels, the photodiodes are not fully depleted, then tau R is not equal to tau F. That is, rise time will not be equal to fall time. So the typical response time of partially depleted photodiode is shown in the diagram. So we see that the fast carriers allow the device output to rise 50% of its maximum value within 1 nanoseconds. But the slow carriers will take long delay before the reaches the output maximum value. To achieve high quantum efficiency, the depletion layer width must be larger, so that we have seen. So 1 by the coefficient. So width should be very much greater than the value, which is coefficient, or width should be inversely proportional to the scattering coefficient, so that most of the light will be absorbed, provided the capacitance of the photodiode is kept low and input pulse is a rectangle. Alpha S is the absorption coefficient, Cj is the junction capacitance. So if the photodiode capacitance is larger, then the response time is limited by this RC time constant of the load resistance and photodiode capacitance. So this is very much essential in this case. If the depletion layer width is smaller, that is W is very much lesser than 1 by very much lesser than this, then the photodiode response tends to show distinct fast and slower components. So the fast component is due to the carriers which are generated in the depletion region, and slow components are from the diffusion of carriers that are created outside the depletion region. So that is what we are supposed to see, the fast components and slower components which are giving us 50% optical power and 100% optical power. So if W is too thin, that is depletion width is very small, then the junction capacitance will become excessive. So if this is going to be very less, then the value of junction capacitance is going to increase. So that is a major concern here. So ES is the permittivity of the material and A is the diffusion layer area. So this is a rectangular input pulse, and this is with the larger Cj, and this is with the smaller Cj. And we see that here there are slow component considered, here it is a fast component considered, and the diffusion component is based on the smaller value of Cj. So to have reasonable high quantum efficiency, there is a compromise in width of the depletion region, and that should be greater than 1 by alpha s but lesser than 2 by alpha s. So this is very important assumption what we are going to make for the trade-off between width of the depletion region and the quantum efficiency. So that we have already discussed between eta and width. So this compromise is very important in these two. Then coming to the comparison of photodetectors, we can compare two different detectors. One is PIN, one is avalanche photodetector. So we have certain parameters based on which we can have a comparison between these two. Coming to the wavelength, we see that there is no difference in the comparison of this wavelength range, so it can be used. If I use a silicon, germanium or insulated gallium arsenide as a material for intrinsic P layer and N layers, and whenever I measure the performance of a PIN photodiode, I look into the responsivity. So responsivity is measured by the detector output by detector input. Detector output is electric current, detector input is optical power, so it is ampere per watts, so current by power, or in some cases it is volts per watts. So if I use silicon, it is 0.4 to 0.6 less responsivity. If it is germanium, it is 0.4 to 0.5, and if I use insulated gallium arsenide, it is going to increase from 0.75 to 0.95. And coming to the gain in the second, that is avalanche photodiode, gain will be very high. So 20 to 400 for silicon, 50 to 200 for germanium, 10 to 40 for insulated gallium arsenide. Then coming to the loss based on the dark current, we see that dark current loss for silicon is 1 to 10 nanoamperes. Similarly, if I go with the germanium, it is 50 to 500, and insulated gallium arsenide 0.5 to 2. Whereas the dark current in the avalanche photodiode is 0.1 to 1 nanoamperes, and 50 to 500 nanoamperes, and 10 to 50 nanoamperes if insulated gallium arsenide is used in avalanche photodiode. Then coming to the rise time for silicon is 0.5 to 1 nanoseconds, germanium 0.1 to 0.5, nanoseconds, insulated gallium arsenide 0.05 to zero point 0.5 nanoseconds. Similarly, the rise time in case of avalanche photodiode is zero point 0.1 to 2 nanoseconds, zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.8 nanoseconds, and zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.1 to zero point 0.5 nanoseconds. And coming to the modulation or bandwidth, the bandwidth is in terms of gigahertz. For silicon, it is 0.3 to zero point 0.7 gigahertz. For germanium, it is 0.5 to 3 megahertz, gigahertz, and insulated gallium arsenide, it is 1 to 2 gigahertz. Similarly, with the bandwidth or a gain in terms of gigahertz for avalanche photodiode is 100 to 400 gigahertz for silicon. For germanium, it is 2 to 10, and for insulated gallium arsenide, it is 20 to 250. And coming to the final bias voltage for pin photodiode, if silicon material is used, is 5 volts, and germanium, it is 5 to 10 volts, and insulated gallium arsenide, it is 5 volts. Whereas in avalanche photodiode, the bias voltage required is very high. That is, for silicon, it is 150 to 400 volts, and for germanium, it is 20 to 40 volts, and for insulated gallium arsenide, it is 20 to 30 volts. So this is the comparison parameters what we use for comparing the pin photodiode with the avalanche photodiode in terms of wavelength, in terms of avalanche gain, in terms of bandwidth, in terms of responsivity, in terms of the dark current noise or dark current, and in terms of rise times, and the bias voltage or the input voltage required for this device. So this is about the comparison of pin and avalanche photodiode. Okay, so